Everybody, welcome to episode number 16 of
Woo.
Roll20 Presents D&D Adventurers League, Sweet 16. Welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Evangelism.
Pretty great. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. It was funny. We were talking about this episode. Everybody in Roll20 in our meeting this week was like, "Oh, you have a show this week?" Like I figured, everybody would have like holiday stuff to do. I'm like, everybody who? Like it's not a holiday for most of us.
Canadian, British Blue Jay.
Happy Thanksgiving, Blue Jay.
I'm a bird.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, Blue Jay.
I don't celebrate Thanksgiving because of its murder of my bird fellows.
That's
I
fair.
see.
That's
I
fair.
see.
Yeah.
The savage turkey genocide.
Yeah.
Savage.
Solidarity for turkeys. I feel it. But yeah, so we're gonna play some D&D today.
Yep.
I'm pretty hype about that. We left off at kind of a like, okay, so here's the thing, and I want to see what y'all think about this. So I'm finding that these adventures for the most part are very like one thing or the other. They're very like, here is a dungeon environment for you to dig around in, or they're like, here's a bunch of NPCs to interact with. Have you noticed that like they're very distinctly one thing or the other? Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I like both a lot, which is actually kind of a surprise to me because I kind of thought I would be like, like, okay, cool, an adventure that's lots of fighting, but also like the game is mostly fighting. And then by comparison, it's like, when you're in these other situations, it's like, okay, well, you're going to get to use your perception checks a lot and maybe insight and investigation, but there's not that much like other mechanical stuff, but that's also like been really fun.
Yeah.
I think in the latter case, that's on y'all. That's why, like, making it entertaining instead of just being like, I don't know, I make a perception check.
I think as we've said like 100 times before, right? Or well, not 100, but relatively.
Like 3d20 plus 5.
Like 3d20 plus 5 amounts. Before. But it's one of those things where it's like the game isn't really made to do that, and you could blast through social interactions with NPCs in like 5 minutes if you wanted to, but we don't.
Yeah, I mean, back when we started the campaign, I remember having a conversation with the folks at Adventurers League and being like, yeah, we figure we're gonna do the first season, and we'll do these adventures kind of one at a time as we go through. And they were like, yeah, we figured it'll be about 60 hours of content, right? They were like, yeah, this is about how long that'll take. And we're like, 16 episodes in, 4 hours to an episode, and we're just under halfway through the season. That's like, I feel like that's maybe not a correct estimate of how long it takes.
Look, they didn't understand the extent to which we just talk a bunch of shit on stream and waste time.
Well, and that's what makes me wonder is like, how efficient is your average Adventurers League party, and are we way behind the curve, or are we just?
It's totally not that. I've been talking to IRL people who I know that exist in real life, like not the same area as me.
AFK friends, not IRL friends.
AFK friends.
Yeah.
The internet is real life, idiot.
No, here the thing is, Andrew, it wasn't the AFK thing that Dave was struggling with. It was whether or not to call you friend, and apparently,
well, I'm helping Dave with that. I'm making it clear for Dave.
Right? Yeah, let me help you.
Oh, whoa!
So anyway, savagery in both directions.
Yeah. Wow. No, I was just gonna say people who actually play Adventurers League in stores and stuff, and it's because they do. This adventure, like all the investigation things, would have been 3 checks, right? 3 investigation rolls, and then they get into the fight and they find all the things on the body, and that takes 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I've played some organized play, not in 5th edition, but I've played some organized play back in 4E, and yeah, it was very much like a couple of combat encounters strung together with some box text. And to be honest, like I feel like in an environment where I don't know the people that I'm playing with, that might be more optimal, just at least at first, to like be like, okay, cool. Well, we have this in common. We know how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Let's focus on that thing. I think it's just because we all like listening to each other talk about shit in funny voices. So
Yeah.
I honestly think it's just that we all enjoy the roleplay aspect of the role-playing game. So, like, we do it.
Yeah, well, and it kind of goes to that eternal debate about whether all role-playing games contain role-playing or not. And I feel like the Adventurers League stuff, it does feel like you could do it, because obviously we are, but it isn't the optimal approach.
Yeah,
in terms of, like, power
the thing
gaming
with
your way through it.
I think the thing that I've sort of noticed with it as we've played these sessions is that there seems to be one way to go, and there's no variation on, well, you have to fight now. Like there's no way around that. And the game is about fighting, so it makes sense to fight. But there seems to be this path that we're always on, and it feels like the Final Fantasy 13 hallway. You know what I mean? Like there's little deviations, and there's maybe like a thing or two you can go check out, but no, you're in the hallway for life.
Yeah, and I think I think that's the way that like pre-published adventures tend to play out anyway, right? Because
that doesn't mean like criticizing it as a like that's bad. I'm just saying like you have to be aware of it, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Is that like I think there's this thing where people are like, yeah, but like if you don't get an infinite amount of choice, then you're being railroaded. But I'm like, have you ever been on a roller coaster? Because shit is super fun. You can't just decide to be like, I want to go over there now. You're on the rails, but it's still a good time.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember being really worried that I wasn't going to work out the secrets of So-Called Keep, but then, like, of course we were.
Well,
like,
what's actually interesting, and we're starting to see this develop in the like I'm getting to see all of it, obviously, because I get to read the adventures, but there's little bits and pieces that are getting reincorporated. It just took a lot longer than I thought, right? There's stuff from the first couple adventures that are starting to get fed back in, and I have a feeling, I haven't read word for word the whole arc, but like I feel like that's a thing that they're actually doing quite a good job at, being like, so in this adventure, there's an NPC from the second one, the fifth one, and the eighth one. And then in the next one, there's one from like the third, and you'll figure out what that guy was doing in the fourth adventure. Like they all kind of like come back in on each other. But it's a different experience running this than a more like sort of traditionally like do whatever you want. It's Dungeons and Dragons like approach. Yep. It's kind of cool. Kind of digging it. So where did we leave off? The blood in the streets and a mysterious note, right?
Yeah, basically we just picked up the note of the evil guy's plans from the henchman of the evil guy who's carrying him.
Yeah. So maybe that's the thing, right? Because y'all went to the tavern to celebrate your street massacre.
Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of where we fade in, right?
I actually think we separated, and then we're gonna meet back at a place in the morning. Is what
that's right. Yeah, you're gonna go back to the library, because the note, written in a very conspicuously colored blue ink, that read, "Just get it done, Soares. If they find me, the last 4 months have been a total waste. Ensure the Whisperer's faith in us was not ill-placed." And then a fancy calligraphy B.
Wait, is it in rhyme?
Waste and ill-placed did rhyme, but the rest of it doesn't.
But the way that you said it sounded like a poem.
Listen, everything I say is a poem, Elf. I can't help it. I'm a poetic person. No, it's not written. It's written in prose that happens to have some rhyme to it. It's actually a rap. They're in the middle of writing a rap, and you've just uncovered an East Coast West Coast rap battle situation.
Suarez and the street bandits.
Yeah, Suarez and the Cult of the Dragon. They're working on the name. It's a little wordy still. Yeah. They were going to be called the Flantastic Five, but that was already taken. Oh, boy. Now I want to write a game about fantasy rap battles. So you've discovered this mercenary or whatever, this thief. They were welcomers, or at least pretending to be. And you've discovered their beat poetry. And I believe that the assumption or the conclusion that y'all had come to was that Cassara Brandywine might be involved in this theft. She was the kind of awkward nerd halfling.
We're not saying she's a suspect, but she is a person of interest in the investigation.
She's on the no-fly list now.
Well, because the ink was the same ink that we
Yes.
saw, or
Yeah.
similar.
But her handwriting was different.
Yeah.
Yes, you compared the handwriting because Graveris is an excellent forger. Is that the forgerist? I think forger is the title for a person who forges.
Seemed good.
He studied forgeronomy.
The person who works in a forge is a blacksmith.
Well, not necessarily. You could be a whitesmith or an armorer or a weaponsmith. It
What's
depends
a
on the metal you use.
whitesmith?
Certainly not a forger. That's
No,
like
that's a
calling
thing.
an
Have you
author
not-
a bookie. Okay.
Right. Have you not heard of that term, Dave?
A whitesmith?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, working with
it's
silver and
essentially
gold.
you work with like platinum and silver and gold, like light metals. And I learned that word from the Burning Wheel.
I was gonna say, obviously, burning wheel.
Oh,
Yeah, I learned it along with Ateliator. Thanks, Luke.
I mean, the thing that came to mind originally was like, blacksmiths make gear for black meat. Then I was like, no, they don't. So it can't be a healing thing because A, that doesn't make sense, and B, that's also not real.
Yeah,
And that was definitely point B.
right. Not point A.
The point that
Point B.
The
magic.
reality of it being semi-relevant.
Yep. Role-playing games, they teach you words that nobody but other people who play role-playing games would use.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like bestiary.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Or anything from a White Wolf game, like celerity or
Auspex.
protean. Yeah. Play role-playing games, kids. It'll improve your vocabulary in the most useless possible ways.
Yeah, Protean is a good one.
It is a good one, right? Yeah. I actually used that one in real life and then secretly cringe because I realized I learned it from Vampire.
Where did you learn this? I learned it from
I learned it from Mark Reinhagen. Cool. So, conspiracy is afoot, potentially, or maybe some rappers. So where do you meet in the morning? Do you go to you want to go to Mantor's library, meet up there?
Sure.
And what's the angle on this? Is this a like bust in and like shove the note in her face and be like, "You did it, you tiny thief," or
Yeah, this is an assault.
yeah, or is this more the assault on Mantor's library? Or this is more, or are you gonna more like confront her and be like, "What's the deal with this?" Because there is some doubt, unless she's also a master forgerist.
I leave this to our more social party members who are not 2-foot tall lizards.
I think we're gonna talk to her about it and then murder her only as needed.
Rats.
I thought you were good at D&D. Come on, you gotta get that initiative bonus. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So Kassra is not like she's not a public facing person in terms of the library, so she doesn't have like appointments that she has to meet or whatever. She's just like around doing scribe mastering stuff. And so when you return the next day, she seems like happy to see you. You know, she's pleased you've returned and assumes that you've got some kind of clue as to the whereabouts of the missing books. And so you find her, I think, probably not in her office. I think you find her sort of in mid project. She's out like in the stacks of the library, and one of the librarian like aides brings you to her. And so yeah, she turns to see you, and you see a smile on her face, and she starts to approach. Who leads the conversation, and what do you say?
Lane's a good cop.
Yeah, I'll good cop you back up. That's fine. Miss Brandywine. I'm glad we could find you again. There's been some developments in the case. We've spoken to all of the wronged parties. Then this very curious thing happened. Yes, we were just off to the tavern for a drink to try and discuss what was going on, and there were some ne'er-do-wells who decided that we ought stop our investigation. I don't suppose you'd know anything about who those might be, who they might be working for, do you?
She goes a little wide-eyed when you say ne'er-do-wells, and she shakes her head, and her look of nervous surprise is evident, and she looks up at you, like quite a ways up, because she's a halfling and you're tall, and she's like, no, I can't imagine. I mean, ne'er-do-wells, of course, with stolen books, you might expect thieves. You say they tried to, is everyone all right? And she like kind of like looks at the group of you like concernedly.
Nothing we couldn't handle. We're all perfectly capable individuals. Yes, it seems a little perhaps over the top to resort to trying to murder us over books, wouldn't you say? I understand that they're important, but
yeah, she says, "Oh, well, murder. I wouldn't know anything about that, but books are very important." And she like looks at Anastasia, who has like a giant book chained to her back.
Yeah, like book bigger than my torso, like that I'm hauling around.
Yeah.
I agree. Your books, yes.
Right. She nods. Like, see.
I paid a very high price for this one.
So yeah, so she turns back to Lane and she's like, "So I mean, to the right person, certainly a book might be worth dying or even killing for. Knowledge is the greatest treasure, so they say."
What would you be willing to do for this treasure?
She kind of like she turns and looks at you. I don't I have no stomach for such things. Violence is terrible. No, and she like looks at how like obviously armed and armored you are. Like, no offense. Everyone makes their way through the world
You
in their own
mistake
way.
my meaning. I mean, would you be willing to help us? And I pull out the letter.
Right. And when she sees like, oh, I think I'm familiar with, right? Like, you know, she's like, oh, of course. And she's kind of like curiously like peering at it, trying to see what it is that you've got, because now you're like, look, a thing with writing on it. Ooh, this is the stuff you like.
Nerds love this shit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So we'll like, I'll take it to her desk or whatever. We're gonna set this up and get her to like go over the letter and see if she can deduce anything about it. But I already know what I think the letter's origin, etc. is. I'm getting her to do this so that I can watch her as she's doing it and
Perfect.
see if she reveals anything.
Okay. Well, why don't
yeah,
we...
you're the slightly more insightful one, right? I'm only a +3.
I'm a +5, so yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Graveris, why don't you make the insight roll? Lane, you can help. And
Great.
the three of you, you two and Casper are occupied. What, Oleander and Anastasia, what are you doing during this?
I
time?
assume we're like in her office.
You're just like out in the library. So
Oh,
there's
are
there's
we?
like
Okay.
there's this like intense like kind of book smell and like dust kind of hanging in the air. It's a relatively sunny day, and there's like big windows on the second and third levels of the library, so it's well lit, big beams of sunlight, and there's this sort of hushed sound occasionally of scribes' robes against the stone floor, someone taking a book from the shelf, but it's otherwise very.
Is there anyone else like around? That I
yeah,
could
like other
potentially approach.
there are other scribes. Yep.
So because this is a big library with lots of information on it, I'm gonna do a little bit of independent research, I think.
Okay.
So knowing that we've got sort of this dragon cult angle,
Mhm.
I'm gonna walk up to one of the scribes. I'm gonna say, "Excuse me."
So the scribe, a middle-aged man, doesn't look at you. He just says, he's like, shh, kind of like gestures, like, shh, quiet. Not like to disturb you, but he's like, he's shelving books. He's got like a wooden cart next to him, and he's putting books up. And stuff.
I was just wondering if you could. I'm doing this like even quieter than when I first spoke up. Like,
Yeah.
I was just wondering if maybe you could help me a moment.
And he starts saying, he's like, well, what do you think I am, a liar? And he sees you, and he's like, ah! And like jumps back and like drops the books and like knocks a bunch of books off. And he's like, points at you, he's like, cobble, this, ah! And like he starts making noises, and a bunch of other scribes are like, shh, like they shush him, and he's just like all white, and like he's got his back up against the shelf, and he's like, oh please no, like he thinks you're gonna like stab him or something. Like
I give him the snaggliest tooth kobold crocodile smile that I can manage. Just well,
yeah, and he's like, oh no, please don't.
And the thing is, Anastasia thinks she's doing like a charming smile to like try and calm him down, but it looks like pretty nasty.
You're just showing your teeth.
Yeah.
So he's looking around for someone to help him because there's no one really nearby.
And I sort of like to try and calm him down, like you know, turn around and like pat the book that I'm
Look
carrying.
at my giant horrific demon tome.
Yeah. I'm looking for anything to do with dragon cults. Section of the library. I don't know. I'm just continuing to try and talk to him to get him to like.
Well, what's
calm
great here is that he's gonna look around and like, Oleander, are you anywhere nearby?
I'm probably standing away from the windows in like a shadowy like thing of the.
Oh, that's
like,
a good
bookshelf.
point. I have sunlight sensitivity.
You both do, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So like the big giant sunny day windows, I'm just like ugh.
So
And I'm like probably taking books out and putting them in the wrong place and like
turning them over.
yeah.
Such an asshole.
Yeah.
So he looks around for help, right? Because maybe he spotted some like adventurers coming in, and he's like, "Oh, good! Like we can save these kobolds from these kobolds." And he looks over, and he sees a drow like reshelving books, and you just like, he's just like now he's just like horrified, right? Like he just like he can't breathe. I think he's like clutching at his neck and like kind of like going pale.
I as I see him like really freaking out, I take the water skin off of my, you know, belt or wherever and like offer it to him like, calm down. I'm not going to hurt you. It's fine. I haven't had this reaction much, but I have a feeling I best get used to it.
Make a persuasion check.
Okay. All right. This freaking guy. Random side monk.
Whoa! All right. Well, cool. You very much persuade him to calm down. And I think what this is that he gets over his initial like, I've never seen a terrifying kobold before. Why is there a drow in the library? And then he's like, I think his like curiosity takes over, where he's like, oh, that is interesting. I'd better figure this out. And so he like takes a deep shuddering breath, and then like calms down, and he reaches out and takes the water skin and drinks some. And he's like shaking his head. He's like, I'm sorry. I've never. And he like kneels down so he can kind of like, you know, get it at eye level. He's like, I've just never, I've only seen pictures of kobolds before. You're not what I expected. Sorry for my initial reaction. I'm easily startled. It's why I work in a library, you see. It's a very calm environment. He looks over at Oleander most of the time.
Yes, very impressive specimen that I am. She says, sort of looking at herself with internal suffering. You know, tail from the back. Like I said, dragon cults, anything?
Yes, of course. You're in the you're in the wrong wing for it, but I can take you there. Please. And he like, you know.
I follow if he leads me away somewhere while these guys are doing the stuff with our friend, our chief archivist or whatever she is. I can't remember.
Scribe Master.
Scribe Master.
It's actually also the name of her glam rock band, Scribe Master.
Yeah, Scribe Master.
She's got a big box of Scribe Master t-shirts in her garage. So, yeah. Meanwhile, I guess Oleander, are you gonna follow Anastasia and her new friend, the librarian?
No.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep. You're gonna.
I'm in the vicinity of Gravaris.
I was about to say, is this the part where you like pull a book out of the shelf and stare at Gravaris through the gap?
There are too many parallels to my real life in this roleplay.
I wouldn't follow a kobold
Don't
around.
even understand.
I mean, unless I was hunting a kobold.
I am
but-
in the proximity of Graveris.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, romance. So meanwhile, yeah, Lane and Graveris are you're with Cass
I'm gonna
right?
make this roll.
Yeah, do it.
So it's insight.
Yeah, it's insight to kind of keep an eye on her and see what her what her feelings
Insight with help, and then I'm gonna get Mask to help me out. Ugh, not the best. I get a 14.
All right. I mean, it's not nothing, and she's not exactly the like skullduggerous type. So
No.
yeah, so she puts the note on the table, and immediately she's like, well, that's odd, and she like rubs her chin thoughtfully and smears a big like blue like mark on the side of her face, and she turns and looks at you, and she's like, where did you say you got this note?
Well, one of the ne'er-do-wells was carrying it before they gave us the information willingly.
She doesn't seem to notice your uncomfortable stumbling over admitting to murdering someone. And she nods and she says, well, I can see why you would be concerned. I mean, there's only a few places in the world, certainly only one place in Flen you'd be able to find this ink. And that is finally the calligraphy. But obviously not my handwriting, because you have a sample of that, which I presume, and she looks at Graveris, that you compared, and you, I mean, I could mimic this writing, but it's certainly not mine. I mean, obviously, look, the L shapes are all wrong. And you get the impression that she's being, like, for real about that. She's not just being like, I'm going to awkwardly try to lead you off track. She's like, no, like, obviously it makes sense you would suspect me because, you know, like, these things are clear to me as they must have been to you.
Yes, but of course you have an alibi or...
She laughs. She's like, I never leave the library if I can help it.
Well, I would certainly like to know who wrote this.
As would I. The writing doesn't look familiar to me. I'm afraid either someone's trying to obfuscate their handwriting, or I've never seen it before, which is possible, though unlikely given the ink. I have to tell you, it doesn't sound like we're dealing with just a thief. It sounds like we're dealing with a rat. I mean, not literally. That is the term, right? When someone pretends to be loyal, but they're not.
Yes.
Someone within the library, yes.
She nods. Yes, precisely that. Though I suppose I should be
to the ink.
right.
Yes.
And what with the crimes of recent history, it seems like the library might have an altogether larger vermin problem than we thought.
Yes, well, everyone that has access to this ink is in the library now. They're all here working.
Well, access to the ink is one thing. The scribes do tend to come and go as they please. They're employees, not prisoners, though. You know, you couldn't tell by looking at some of us. Sorry,
Yes,
that's
well,
a joke.
We should
about,
round them up as if they were prisoners and treat them as such for a moment.
Oh, I don't have the authority to. But Master O'Penriel, the head curator. Yes,
I'll take care of it.
Speak to him. He'll be able to authorize that sort of thing. The library, we're very busy, and to take all the scribes off of their projects for even a short period of time, it's above my my pay grade, as it were.
But you do have perhaps a list of those who would have access to the records showing where the books are being lent out to.
Oh, yes, but I mean, that would be a very long list. It's public knowledge who borrows the books. I can take you to it, the record, if you would like, but I haven't. I mean, you've looked at it already, haven't you?
I mean, did we? I don't
Yeah,
think
it was
we
that big book. I mean, I don't really really poured through it, but it was that big book that like they had that logged
Yeah.
all of the books in and out of the library over the years.
I thought that she kept that in her office. It wasn't a public knowledge
I
thing.
thought it was like up front.
She it's up front, and it's like if you wanted to just go look through it, you certainly could. But she says like any other information about the scribes here or their comings and goings, you'll need Master Penrail's authorization. He's very busy though, but we could try. I have hope that with a little patience, you could see him if you wish. But as before, you're free to continue your investigation in the library however you feel necessary, as long as you're not disruptive to the work. And when she says that, she like looks over at the like things she was obviously doing before you came here, not in a like impatient way, but in a like I have to keep working, there's so much to do, I'm stressed out kind of way.
All right, we'll speak to this. Would you like me to come with you when you request an audience? I can be persuasive in my own way, not the sword way. Don't worry about that. I had quite enough of that for a day.
I can be persuasive in a sword way. Yeah, I think she says, well, yes, of course. I suspect it would go over better if you were to come along with me.
Gravaris, did you want to come with, or help them do some more research, perhaps? And if you got a list of the scribes, cross-reference it with the B, the surname, or something of that kind, or whatever it was that your plan
I
was
will
going.
work the human element,
Right.
which is to say, I will abuse and interrogate these people until I find who we're looking for.
I can help with that. And like I come around the
Just
corner
slide
as soon
in.
as he says abuse and interrogate, I'm just like, oh, hello.
Awesome.
And I'm just gone somewhere else.
I love that Oleander, like that's your idea of like, ooh, we could be a date, like abuse and terrify.
Yes.
Why, hello.
Sounds wonderful.
Okay. All right. So you wanna, Lane, you wanna go with Castra and see if you can get an appointment with the head curator.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. And then Gravaris and Oleander, you are going to interview
Harass the
some of the scribes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Anastasia, you're taken to another area of the library, and you and your scribe escort arrive in a little like reading room area, and he says, to be perfectly honest, this part of the library is a bit cluttered. It can be very hard to find what you're looking for. I'm happy to help. To be honest, I'm only shelving books because we seem to have a spate of disappearing librarians of late. Normally, I'm a scribe. You see, I speak 6 languages, and I can write 5 of them. In fact, Draconic quite entirely escapes me. The written form is fascinating, and he like starts to talk to you about like
as I was about as he was like, I speak 6 languages. I was like, oh really? Like in Draconic, as he goes like, but not Draconic, and I'm like,
yeah. Well, he can speak it okay. He certainly understands it, but his grasp of the written form is a little off. But yeah.
Well,
So
if you're interested in Draconic literature,
yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah, he takes a look at it, and it's like clearly, like a fell tome, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and he looks at you and blanches a little, and he says, he laughs. He says, one of the first things that they teach us here is that some books are best left closed or read by those who have the intellectual fortitude to resist the troublesome content within. I'll leave that to the professionals. And he kind of like goes to like pat the book, like yes, but doesn't actually want to touch it. So just kind of like puts his hand on it.
I sort of drag it back towards me, and I'm like, yes, all right, well, fair enough. So disappearing librarians, you said?
He nods. Yes, there's been well, gossip is I don't know the exact details myself, but gossip is that we had two thieves in our midst not that long ago, and they
oh yes,
stole
I heard about that.
He nods. He says, a real shame, and now there's this business with these books going missing. Scribe Master Brandywine is beside herself about it. I hear she's hired some adventurers. It's exciting stuff, but too much for me. Weak heart.
Yes, I am one of said adventurers.
He quirks an eyebrow. It's like,
I say, trying to look as heroic as possible.
Yeah, he nods and he says that's, and you're friends with the and he's trying to think of a word that's not like a racial slur.
You're talking about Oleander, the drow, yes? Yeah, she's
he gives you a look like, is it okay for us to call them that?
She can't hear us.
Right. I guess that's a question. Do drow, like, is that a self-identified term that dark elves use?
I think that dark elf would be like the most PC.
Well, no, there's actually, we talked about this, I think, like really early on. There's actually like a word in Elven. There's a word in drow that means like they're people. They have a name for themselves.
Oh, okay.
But I can never remember what it is.
I can't remember it either.
I mean, but when you're talking about like high elf, wood elf, dark elf seems like it would be the most PC, and drow seems like it might be like a more like.
I wonder about that though, because it's like, I'm a high elf. We're noble and glorious. I'm a wood elf. We live in the woods. I am a dark elf. We live in the darkness. Like I wonder about that. I mean, I guess that's your call because I don't really.
I don't have any.
Regardless of whether it's a slur or not, you hate me anyway. Like
I do.
Your irrational hatred of me has grown in the last I
mean, I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, also in a world of moral relativism or non-moral relativism, absolutism, it wouldn't matter because the drow are evil and they probably don't care. But yeah. So I guess the question is whether or not that would be the word that you would use, how you address them. And his concern is like to be technically accurate because he's a nerd, and that's like the most important thing to nerds.
If he hesitates on drow, I go, dark elf, the one with the white hair and the black skin.
He nods. He's like, it appears to be a day of firsts for me.
She's interesting, mostly. Well, I can't say harmless, but just don't make her mad, and she'll be fine.
Just don't make her mad. Like that's.
Don't insult spiders. I've seen that go badly before.
He nods.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm looking for books here pertaining to. Wait, hang on. We were talking about librarians. How many have disappeared recently?
He says, well. See, that's the thing. Any number, really. I mean, once a scribe, always a scribe. It takes so long to learn how to, and this is like kind of him side bragging, right? Where he's like, it takes so long to learn the intricate art of copying a book, just so that you capture not only the details of the original work, but the essence, its author intent. It's a great deal of work. It's a massive investment and commitment, and so we don't have a lot of turnover. Scribes die of old age. They don't quit.
I have nothing but the utmost respect for those who work here in the library. Having spent some time here in the past, but what I mean is, do you think they have been leaving of their own accord? I don't believe that somebody would want to leave such a prestigious post. No.
He nods, and he says, "Well, some of the other scribes think that perhaps one of the lower archives is haunted. Now, these rumors come and go year to year, and particularly dark years. It's more popular among the younger scribes to tell ghost stories about." The spirits of the library coming up to snatch away young scribes, and it's all nonsense. The library has a great and storied history, as does the city of Flan, but disappearances are altogether another thing. But more often than not, these things turn out to be mundane. Someone gets lost in the stacks for a few days, and they turn up, or they turn out to be thieves, like those two. But there's rumors, which I suppose is why you and your companions are here to investigate these sorts of things.
Yes, you could describe them as my companions. I think if there are rumors, they must stem from somewhere. If people are disappearing, then it's not just, a silly rumor or a story, is it really?
He says, well, I mean, 3 or 4 scribes is hardly an epidemic, though, in such short order. He shrugs. I don't know. I stick to the books. This is someone else's problem, which I suppose is they're paying you to make it your problem. I'm sorry, I can't be of more help.
It's not an issue. Perhaps you can help me find something relevant to our interests around here. We have some thought that maybe Dragon is involved somehow with something that's going on. Common dragon cults, or a book on the worship of dragons, or something like that.
Yeah. And as you say, he says, he's like, yes, of course. Flan has a troubled history with the scaly folk, the Dragon Run and all that, and then before that, everything with Tyrant. And you say that, and he looks at you, and he kind of blanches. He's like, I mean, we've never had any problem with And again, he's doing that thing where he's like, is kobold like the word in your language? And he's searching his head because he's like, okay, what would they call themselves in Draconic? But in Dragon, like in the Draconic language, it's a very like diminutive term for kobolds because they're slaves to dragons. So he's like trying to be like, what's the politic way to like refer to you?
And while he's like stammering over it, I'm just like, I'm just joking with you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he laughs and he says, I'm sorry, my sense of humor is somewhat atrophied. Scribes are dour folk. What a strange day this has been. Let me help you. And he heads off to the stacks to bring you back a pile of books. Why don't you make an investigation roll? You can have advantage. You have help from your
sure. Investigation with advantage. Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice. You don't even need this guy. He's just bringing you books, and you're the insightful one. So what are you looking for in particular?
I'm looking for information especially to do with like cults of Tiamat. Like I said like popular dragon cults, or like the practices and worship of these dragons and so forth. But like I'm scanning specifically for Tiamat.
I think the most relevant information, you're cross-referencing with what you already know, and the kind of stuff that you've seen so far. So prior to like relatively recently historically, like there's no like exact dates on this stuff. You're reading secondhand accounts, you're looking through Black Fist like reports, that sort of thing. The thing that you're finding is that there's some evidence that the cult of the dragon, so prior to relatively recently, there was kind of one main line of belief in the cult of the dragon, right? Where they were like, dragons are the greatest entities in the world. They deserve our admiration and our worship, but the flesh is weak, and the spirit, the power of all creatures is strong, and as such, dragons who have died and returned to life in their like undead form are the purest kind, right? That undead dragons are prophesied to rule over Faerun. They have a central like prophet figure who delivered this prophecy unto them, and formed the basis of their whole cult. But not that long ago, there was a splinter faction that had been like sort of growing in power in the Cult of the Dragon that reinterpreted some of these original prophetic speaking and writings, and follow the Cult of the Dragon has sort of drifted to become, at least this branch of it has drifted to become a more like mainstream like Tiamat cult. They worship dragons not as embodiments of power, but as like avatars of great Tiamat's will. Less so much with the undead angle, and more with the great five-headed queen of darkness risen from the abyss thing. So this is like this like alt branch of the Tiamat cult. That's kind of either the cult has like infected the cult, like the Tiamat cult has like kind of taken over the Cult of the Dragon, or the Cult of the Dragon is kind of like leaning into mainstream like Tiamat worship. But Tiamat's not a popular deity anywhere in this part of the world. She has like a strong religious following like in the sort of further east. I can't remember the name of the country, but the like Egypt analog in Faerun has like a more mainstream Tiamat cult. But out here, it's
so I
West.
just get a bunch of general knowledge and that kind of stuff about what I want to know. Mostly this was just like, well, they're not going to need me to talk to the scribe. We've seen the scribe master or the whatever else is going to happen next. Like they'll come and find me when they need to go and kill things, but like my contribution is probably minor otherwise, so I'm doing like this independent research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And I think with all this like this stuff, the next time you need to make a check about like the Cult of the Dragon or Tiamat or like the mysterious goings on thereof, you can take advantage on it. You can use this to recall some detail that helps you in that situation.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So meanwhile, back upstairs, let's check in on how Lane and Oleander are doing. What are the two of you up to?
I mean, Lane was with Brandywine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm with Gravaris.
So Lane, I wanted to check like if the three of you have a conversation before you split up at all, right? Because like Lane, Gravaris was just like, I'm gonna go and like torture and abuse some people, and then Oleander was like,
yeah,
I'm interested in and maybe like a little turned on by this idea.
So Gravaris will outline the following plan, which is that
the Gravaris plan. Point the first
authority figure who is going to round up all the scribes for this, like, we're going to have an assembly and teacher's going to talk to everyone about how people did a bad thing. And so Lane can work that angle. What Gravaris and Oleander are going to do is they're going to catch any runners.
Mm.
So like people who avoid the assembly are going to be suspicious, obviously. And so we're going to be like, watching for folks who try to like shirk this duty and see what their deal is. So we're going to hopefully catch the culprit rather.
I would also like to see if there's someone else missing aside from the two scribes that were arrested, murdered in the scribe room, because we've been there before. We talked to people before.
Mm-hmm.
If there was someone else who wasn't there, I want to go harass pornography guy. What? I like the NPC.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like I was just like, wait a second, who is she talking about? And then I was like, oh, the guy from the last adventure. Oh, that poor guy.
I mean, yes.
All right, so I guess the chronological first thing to happen would be Lane is going to go and try to talk to the head curator.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So Lane, you and Casra, you follow Casra to a what appears to be like a much larger version of her office. The door is shut, and there's a plate on the door, a brass plate with an embossed title, and it says Head Curator Opanriel. And Casra looks nervously at the door and then at you, and like takes a deep breath and like knocks on the door, And there's no answer, but you can hear someone like shuffling around inside. You hear maybe like something get put down on a desk. You hear like a thumping sound, and she looks at you kind of helplessly, like, I did everything I'm brave enough to do now.
Perhaps the knock would be louder if you plate gauntlets. Knock louder.
she gestures like, please.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you, and there's like a grumbling inside. You hear this like, ah, and like some more like shuffling, and then you can hear someone walking towards the door. The door creaks open a little bit, and you see an older man, has kind of like soft features, gray hair that's like a little long, but it's like tied back in a ponytail. And he comes to the door, and he looks at you, looks down at Castra, looks up at you. It's like, do you have an appointment?
Unfortunately not. Though
He
this
closes
was
the door.
particularly-
As soon as you say not, he just clunk, the door just like starts to swing closed. You can probably jam your foot in it or something if you want, but yeah,
I will.
okay. So closes the door on your foot, and he looks down at your like plate mailed boot and looks up at you, and he like huffs. Like, no appointment? You can't just storm in here. I'm very busy. Don't you see? And he points at the door. He's like, head curator. Every second I spend talking to you, you lummox, I'm wasting. This is a waste of time. And he like looks at Casper like, this is your fault. And he like turns around to go back into his office. He doesn't close the door though, because you're standing in it.
Right, well then I suppose I ought to make this quick. You've had...
So you just walk into the office after him?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So his office is like perfectly tidy. There are bookshelves on all the walls, and all of the books are in like some, like, you can't at a glance tell what organizational method is being used here, but you can tell just by looking at them that they're perfectly organized. There's no dust on any surface. The books are all exactly lined up on the shelf, and on the desk in the middle of the room, there's a book and a pot of ink and a quill, and everything is exactly the same distance from everything else and is aligned at perfect right angles from the edges of the desk. There are 3 chairs sitting exactly the same space apart in front of the desk, and they're the same distance from the desk as his chair is from the other side. He walks in and goes back towards his desk, and then kind of stops when he realizes you've walked into his office, and he turns around again, and he's like, this is very, very rude. You need an appointment.
No, I'm aware, but the longer we take with the bureaucratic process is more of your time that we waste.
And he looks at you like you've just said something like incredibly insulting, like, how dare you speak ill of the bureaucratic process? And he just turns at you like just like startled at this blasphemy.
Yes, now that I have your attention, we have good reason to believe one of your scribes has been acting as an informant to a gang of book thieves. I trust you understand how grievous the crime it is to be stealing knowledge from these hallowed halls and its surroundings.
Yeah, and he like huffs again, like, and he looks at Castor and he's like, yes, I specifically delegated this to my scribe master to handle. And she like tries to speak. She's like, yes, Master Curator, but this is a bit over, like she's just stammering
out of
nervously.
Respect for your position as the head of curator, she did not want to overstep her bounds and request a meeting of the scribes.
Can you make a persuasion check for me?
Okay.
Lane, so persuasive.
Oh, damn. Look at you, Charisma Jones. All right. So when you're like, she didn't want to go over your head, he's like, yes. Chain of command's very appropriate. I suppose I could make, and he like looks over, and I think he's probably got like a big like a water clock or something in the corner of his office. because grandfather clock kind of thing wouldn't have been invented yet. They don't have the technology to make gears that small. But he looks at like his timekeeping device and he's like, yes, I suppose I could spare a few moments. Make it quick. And he gestures to the seats and he walks over and he sits down in his, but doesn't move the chair at all. Where do you sit?
I don't know. Is
Or do
there
you
a chair
stand?
big enough?
Yeah. There's three chairs that are like exactly alike sitting in front of the desk.
All right, I'll sit in the middle one then, just so I can look at him while we're
Okay.
having a conversation.
So you sit down in the middle one, and Castro sits in the one to the left of you, and you can see, you can see the librarian, the head curator, like become visibly like discomforted by the asymmetry of your like seating plan. Like because now you're off to one side, and he kind of like swallows, and you can see him like fidget slightly.
I mean, in fairness, she was always going to be shorter than me
I
anyway,
know.
so like, there's nothing we
There's
can
no
do.
symmetry here.
Mhm.
None at all.
Yeah, but he like, yeah, he's like, it's not like he's freaking out, but like you can see it makes him a little uncomfortable, but he's used to it, capable of dealing with it. He says, so I presume you're the ones that Castor has sent out to go and investigate the situation for us, these missing books.
We are, yes, and it turns out that there is somebody in league with the thieves working here. We have traced it back by the particularly unique ink that you use in this location. However, we can't ascertain without having them together which of the scribes it is that is assisting them.
He says, he's like, oh, it's obvious. That's Garda and Ellison. They didn't show up for their shift this morning, and there's no reason for them not to. I'm sure it was the two of them. And he looks at his clock proudly, like, nah, I solved the mystery. Get out of here. I'm gonna go back to work.
It's a good thing Reverso isn't there because this would go poorly.
I'm afraid it probably isn't that simple.
He shakes his head. He's like, no, it is. It absolutely is. He says, I have no reason to believe otherwise. I know the location of every scribe in this place at all times. And those two being missing, there's no question. I don't know where they are, but they're your suspects. Go find them, and I'm sure they'll work it out.
With such intimate knowledge of all of your scribes, perhaps you would recognize the handwriting from a note?
Yeah. If you show it to him,
Yeah, I will.
He takes it, and he takes out some reading glasses, puts them on the end of his nose, looks at it, holds it a little further away, holds it up to the light. He's like, and he nods. Yes, this is the handwriting of Ellison Behringer. And he taps the B on the paper. He's like, I've seen that sigil before. Sloppy work. And with the library's ink, no less.
I must confess to being amazed. You were correct. I was foolish to doubt you.
He smiles smugly. He's like, yes, well, you don't get to be head curator for being a dunce. I do know my way around these sorts of things.
Very well. Then is there any particular requests you have when we attempt to apprehend him?
He shrugs. No, I don't care about him. He's only been employed at the library for 4 months. Reliable until today. And if he's stealing books, well, the Black Fist will deal with it. I just want my books back. I mean, the library's books. They're the books of the library.
This guy is now my chief suspect.
Yeah, and what was his name? It was
Panriel, yeah. You've heard it once before. When you showed up at the wizard, no one asked her about it, but when you showed up at the wizard's place, she was like, oh, Master O'Panriel's like sent you to harass me.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Suspicious.
Yeah, I'm a little bit suspicious. But
Yo, B is obviously for his supervillain name, Book Lord. He's just covering for it.
The Page Master.
Yeah.
Ah!
Yeah. He's curating villainy. So he says to you, Lane, he says, well, I'll tell you this much. If this Ellison Behringer is in cahoots with Garda, it's certainly under some threat of violence or trouble. Garda Greenleaf is a senior librarian with a flawless record of attendance. He's a perfect librarian in every possible way as far as I'm concerned. Up until this morning, when he didn't show up for work.
And you wouldn't have any idea who this whisperer might be.
He looks at it and looks at you. He's like, religious nonsense. I'm sure of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would like to find out if he's lying, but I feel like from the way that he actually, the way he's behaved has been consistent the entire time.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I could make an inside check.
I mean, it sounds like you're making an inside check, right? Like you're trying to be insightful, trying to figure that out.
Yeah. I just don't feel like I have a lot to go on to roll the check. But,
I mean, your character does, right? Your character is constantly like subconsciously trying to pick up on stuff, and you are definitely like in a suspicious like moment, so it makes sense to make the roll.
Okay.
Oh yeah, look at you. So if anything, if he's hiding anything, it's that he's embarrassed that like this is happening in the library at all, right? Like that it's casting that it's like twice now someone is like stolen from the library, and like he just doesn't like disorder. He doesn't like things not being the way he wants them to be, and it's bothering and upsetting him, and he's covering for it by being like kind of like a tight ass about it, by being like, yes, well, obviously I have it under control. Like I'm super smart, and no one's gonna try to have me removed as head curator ever because I'm great. Please don't take me away from my beautiful library. But yeah, he's being real with you as best he is able.
Okay. I'm gonna say, well, in that case, thank you very much for your time. In fact, I believe that there may well be some conversations you can have with colleagues of mine at some point in the future to make sure this sort of thing doesn't happen again. I understand it must be quite distressing for these this disorder within your library.
He nods. He says, Mantra's Library is an organization devoted to the categorization and collection of knowledge. Having things out of place is terribly troublesome for me. So I appreciate you fixing this problem for us, for the library, and for me, and doing so quickly and quietly. Here, this might help. And he closes the book, picks it up, takes a second to use his sleeve to like wipe the dust that the book left on his desk, and once he's like sufficiently got that dealt with, goes over to the shelf, puts the book back in the gap where the book was.
Yep.
Goes over to his desk again, opens his desk, and he takes out a ledger, and he puts it down, and he opens it, and you can see the ledger is listed. It's got a bunch of names. It's got a bunch of like different like what looks like jobs, and then it's got dates, right? And so he flips it to the end, and he's going through the list, and he gets to an item on the list that says Ellison Behringer and Garda Greenleaf, and they are next to they're next to the word archives in the column for like the location of their work, and it's got today's date, and he says Ellison and Garda were scheduled to, it looks like, visit the archives under the library today. It makes sense. Garda's an archivist, spends most of his time down there and bringing up the older books, working on restoration. So it's an easy place to get lost. If you're lucky, you might still find them down there, though Garda is not one to get lost in the library. And you can see a moment of concern kind of pass over his face. Like suddenly he's like, oh, something bad might have happened. And then he looks at you with that concern and says, please, if you find anything, do come back and let me know post haste. No appointment required. Oh my.
Of course.
And like he's suddenly like now realizing that like, oh, somebody like could have been like hurt. It's like someone I know might have been hurt as a result of this. I hadn't considered that. and kind of like, yeah, like loses himself in that feeling for a moment.
It's like, okay. Yeah, in fact, I don't say anything. I just turn up and I kind of theatrically do whatever kind of cape I've got on the back of the plate armor, and I give him like a reassuring but very serious nod and just like head straight out. I'm sure he'll appreciate that more than words.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like that's a thing that as a fantasy character in plate armor with a cape, you have to learn how to do. The like, I'm a paladin leaving the room thing. Yeah.
I'm gonna leave this room and solve all of your problems.
Yeah, exactly.
The Kingsguard cloak turn and swoosh.
Exactly. Yeah. There's like slight like heel turn, like kind of, yeah, very theatrical.
Reverse is good at doing it too, but mine is totally fake.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas Lane does it like, and he feels, you know.
Oleander's good at the like, I might murder you later, leaving the room.
The like slowly walking backwards out of the room doing this. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go to break with Lane swooping out of the room, and with the now very impressed head scribe Brandywine following along. We'll take a short break here, and we'll come back, and we can have all the characters meet up again and share what they've learned before you decide where to go next. All right. Stick around, everybody. We'll be back with more Adventurers League when we get back.